Yeah, right now it's covered with cows.
The vast majority of those are African households in the former Bantustan's communal areas, and the majority of those produce an additional supply of food for themselves. It's not the primary source of income for those households. For households who produce a surplus which is sold for cash, there are about 200,000, perhaps as much as 250,000 households involved. So it's a whole lot less than 2 million. And I would define those as market-oriented smallholder farmers. Whereas the households who produce a little bit of extra food for themselves, I would say we should call them subsistence-oriented smallholders. There's a UN food summit going on at the moment, and people are quoting the statistics. And those are showing that around 1/3 of the world's food supply is produced by smallholder farmers. So the big guys, the big corporates and so on, the big farmers in Brazil, the USA, Australia, but also increasingly in Asia, they produce the bulk of the world's food supply. But of course, there are many problems associated with that food system. And with something like 2 million households involved in agriculture in rural South Africa. Only a small number of those are large-scale commercial farms, and in fact still largely owned by white South Africans, about 40 to 50,000. In the last 10 years or so, all support has been devoted to not to smallholder farmers, but to what one might call emerging black commercial farmers, who are the chief beneficiaries of land reform, the key focus of support by the Land Bank, and who are really in the pound seats here. And small-scale farmers out in the former homelands, those who produce in irrigation schemes, those who produce small livestock and large livestock, receive very little support in practice. And as a result, it's not surprising that so many land reform projects fail. They're actually specifying the wrong populations as beneficiaries. If you're going to compete as a large-scale farmer, you need lots of capital. You need lots of know-how. It's very management intensive. It's very difficult for black farmers without prior experience to break into these sectors. And as a result, the numbers are small and the failure rates are high. If you're going to supply them with large amounts of loan funding, it's going to be very difficult for them to pay back their loans. And I suspect this may be why the land banks ran into problems, in fact. In a recent project for government, through Treasury, we went to 4 local municipalities around the country, including Tsenin, which is the center of the subtropical fruit industry in South Africa. And we interviewed small-scale black farmers who've somehow managed to get a toehold in the industry, are crying out for more support, but they are saying we could produce a living for ourselves in this highly competitive sector. Mm-hmm. And we discovered the Subtropical Fruit Growers Association, willing to do something to show that they mean the right thing. They're engaged in training and support. I think those programs, if expanded to a decent scale, I think it could show real success. With the climate crisis, we're looking, in order to survive as a species on this planet with its vulnerable ecosystems, I do think we have to look at new economic systems which are more just and equitable, in which these class differences could perhaps be muted. What we have to think about is sustainability, not only in the ecological sense, but in the social and political sense. The majority of our population who have a weak stake in the system as it is, because they're largely still shut out. I mean, our levels of unemployment are extraordinary. Levels of youth unemployment are extraordinary. People don't have a stake in our society. They're surviving. They're getting by. They're doing whatever they need to do. They're engaged in criminality just as a way to survive. So if we're going to create a truly sustainable social, economic, and political system, and one which is ecologically sustainable, we need to join up the dots and create a system which is good, which includes and is good for everyone.